Is serotonin something you really want to be increasing? Well, in this video, what I'm going to do is take a look at the top symptoms associated with excess serotonin, and we'll take a look at some ways that we can specifically lower serotonin to alleviate many symptoms that many people are complaining about in today's day and age. So for those of you who are brand new to my channel, my name is Lucas, the founder of Ergogenic Health, and my mission is to bring you the most cutting edge health information that you'll struggle to find on Google. So please do me a favor and like this video and hit subscribe down below to stay up to date with the latest and greatest health research. I've already done a video on the serotonin, the high serotonin personality type, and we'll quickly run through some of the symptoms associated with excess or elevated levels of serotonin. So the very first symptom of high or excess serotonin is actually something known as anhedonia. Now, anhedonia is essentially a loss of ability to experience pleasure or joy from activities that used to feel good. It's a kind of organic anesthesia, a dropping out from consciousness of desire and satisfaction. So the best way to describe anhedonia would be, for example, you have a blunted pleasure response to either music, let's say sexual activity, orgasm doesn't feel as good, perhaps food doesn't taste as nice as it used to, and just a general numbing effect on your emotional response to pleasure. Interestingly, elevated levels of serotonin can actually exacerbate and worsen anhedonia due to serotonin's dampening effect on the dopaminergic system. So as we can see here in this study that was titled Serotonergic Plasticity in the Dorsal Raphe Nucleus characterizes susceptibility and resilience to anhedonia. And what they noted was that rats that are susceptible to stress-induced anhedonia displayed elevated numbers of serotonin signaling neurons. So there are many causes of anhedonia, and I'll perhaps dedicate another video just to anhedonia. But high serotonin, as we can see, can make one more prone to stress-induced anhedonia. Anhedonia can actually develop through severe stress, prolonged stress, and unpredictable stress as well. Now, taking a look at the next symptom of high serotonin, the next symptom is actually fatigue. Now, fatigue or lethargy or general tiredness, feeling lazy, this can occur in chronic fatigue syndrome due to elevated 5-HT2A, which is a type of serotonin receptor expression. And so by inhibiting tryptophan hydroxylase, which is the enzyme that converts the tryptophan that we eat into serotonin, this actually prevents fatigue. Now, this is why substances like Siberian ginseng, beta-alanine, and other agents that lower serotonin like bromantane can reduce fatigue by shifting the balance more towards dopamine dominance. And in addition, serotonin can lower the metabolic rate via inhibiting thyroid hormone function. So we can see here this study was titled Inhibition of Tryptophan Hydroxylase Abolishes Fatigue Induced by Central Tryptophan in Exercising Rats. Taking a look at the next symptom of high serotonin, the next one is actually rigid thinking. Now, this is related to sort of feeling stiff in conversation. Perhaps you're someone who notices that you're always just very direct in your responses to people, or perhaps you just don't have that mental flexibility, that ability to sort of think outside the box. This can be a symptom of excess serotonin. So we can see here the study was titled Evidence for the Preferential Involvement of 5-HT2A Serotonin Receptors in Stress and Drug-Induced Dopamine Release in the rat's medial prefrontal cortex. So this is another example of excess serotonin leading to dampening of the creativity response. Now, the fourth symptom of high serotonin is laziness, and this sort of ties in with fatigue. If you're someone that feels like you're too comfortable and cozy all the time, perhaps you have elevated levels of serotonin. Are you someone that struggles to actually get stuff done, or perhaps you procrastinate often? Perhaps you have high serotonin. Are you someone who struggles to actually initiate tasks? Having an inability to actually take action may be due to elevated levels of serotonin and insufficient amounts of dopamine and noradrenaline, which are needed to take action towards our goals. And finally, the last symptom, which people that have ever used SSRI drugs can absolutely relate to, is the robotic nature of your personality. And it's well documented that SSRIs, which are drugs that increase serotonin, can actually make humans obedient. They reduce lateral thinking and basically make it easier to surrender to the norm. High serotonin can actually make one more compliant and actually agreeable. Whereas dopamine, on the other hand, promotes expansive thinking and enables you to take action. So the very first serotonin lowering hack is actually 1000 milligrams of L-phenylalanine, which is an amino acid, combined with 3 grams of BCAAs in a 4:1:1 combo. So that's the ratio of the BCAAs, leucine, isoleucine, and valine. Now we can see here the sort of effect that this would elicit. Because phenylalanine and BCAAs share the same transporter through the blood-brain barrier, we can shift the ratio towards more L-phenylalanine and specifically increase dopamine balance and production in the brain. And by doing so, we can see a decrease, a direct lowering of serotonin levels in the brain. And many people that have tried this particular experiment have noticed a lot of the benefits of high dopamine and lowered serotonin, such as more motivation, better resilience, better verbal fluency, and just generally feeling more vital in general. So this is the first hack to lower serotonin. Now, the next hack is actually to decrease estrogen levels. Now, I'm not someone who recommends using some of the potent pharmacological agents to lower estrogen levels, as some of these need, doctors' permission and coordination. And so lowering estrogen through the use of some of these aromatase inhibiting drugs is not the solution. Instead, we want to be using other methods to lower estrogen levels, which I've covered in another video on my channel, so make sure you check that out. So what we know is that estrogen is one of the most potent inducers of serotonin, as it increases serotonin synthesis by upregulating tryptophan hydroxylase 2 expression, increases serotonin receptor 5-HT2A, and prevents its clearance and breakdown by inhibiting SERT, which is the transporter, serotonin transporter, and also MAO-A, which is one of the enzymes that degrade serotonin. So by lowering estrogen, we can see a decrease in serotonin. The next serotonin lowering hack is actually aspirin, or baby aspirin. Now, aspirin contains acetyl salicylic acid, which when consumed with a meal can block tryptophan absorption from the gut. And it also has the ability to decrease serotonin receptors, the 5-HT2 and 5-HT3 receptors, and increased serotonin turnover in the brain. So it can actually promote serotonin turnover, the opposite of SSRIs. Now we can see the study here was titled "Aspirin Curtails the Acetaminophen-Induced Rise in Brain Norepinephrine Levels." And I dived deeper into this study, and they noted that aspirin was able to decrease the rise in norepinephrine and serotonin levels. So we can see here, in contrast, aspirin did not alter the levels of these monoamines, but increased serotonin turnover in the brain, whilst acetaminophen decreased the turnover. So we can see here that aspirin was able to increase the turnover of serotonin, which is what we want when we want to lower the effects of serotonin. And the next hack to lower serotonin is actually a herb known as feverfew. Now, feverfew extracts are potent inhibitors of serotonin release from platelets and neurons, and it also blocks serotonin receptors 5-HT2A and the 5-HT2B serotonin receptors. We can see here, quoted from the study, the mechanism of action associated with parphenolide, which is one of the active constituents in feverfew, does not involve the inhibition of 5-HT2 receptors directly, but rather occurs at the level of 5-HT stored in vesicles of the intramural neurons of fundal tissue. So we can see here there are many ways to lower serotonin. This is only a snapshot of the many different ways that we can decrease serotonin. If you are interested in, optimizing and manipulating your neurotransmitters, then consider joining my Superhuman with Nootropics course. You can use the code YouTube40 for 40% off. It basically goes through hundreds of different psychoactive substances, nootropics, and drugs to alter your mood, energy, focus, and even your personality. This is years worth of research all packed into one course. You guys can pretty much access it at any time after you enroll. So be sure to check the link in the video description down below. Be sure to use the code YouTube40 for 40% off. That basically goes through tons of amazing compounds, substances, nootropics, peptides, all the amazing things that we can utilize to essentially take control of our brain and just feel more motivated, more productive, better memory, and things like that. So consider checking that out. Otherwise, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully you learned more than one thing in this video. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.